Now, this topic has been very controversial. It continues to be, but it has been in the news for the past couple of weeks, and I dare say a few months now, whether to decriminalize or not. And joining me this evening to discuss the issue, we have both sides of the argument. The chairman of the cannabis movement, he's also the leader of the Green Party, Andre De Caires, and also clinical psychotherapist, Dr. Franklin Bray. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for Newsmaker Live, for joining us for Newsmaker Live. And I look forward to the discussion on this issue. I always like to get both sides of an argument together, and it is so wonderful that both of you have agreed to be here this evening. It's nice to see you.
Thank you,
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. All right, marijuana. Before we even get into marijuana, there's so many issues that we need to discuss concerning the arguments that have been raised. And I know that you have been on a campaign to educate and to try to push the authorities in the direction of decriminalizing, not only for the use of marijuana, but also for hemp in particular, to develop certain industries. And that has been your focus. So tell me about this campaign, and then after we'll come to Dr. Bray.
Well, we started our campaign in 1998, Ms. DeVoe, Mr. Randall Bain, and myself. And over a year, we did have a little help from Mr. Christian Brown as well during that time. And we came up with a proposal, a 42-page project proposal that we submitted to the government, requesting that we conduct research trials in industrial hemp to develop a stable cultivar that we could use in our diversification scheme, agricultural diversification scheme. The project would have taken 5 years to establish a seed, approximately 5 years. And then we would have looked for selected farmers around the island, different soil types, and introduce initially a few farmers to it to see how it would respond, to see what levels of seed production we would get, what sort of strength of fibers we would get, and then determine exactly where we would take the industry. We were led on for 6 years, from 1998 to 2004, by the then government of the day, the SLP government, and which included Dr. Jimmy Fletcher as permanent secretary, senior research officer, Mr. Guy Matre, Ms. Joan Norville was also in research at the time. Dr. Julius Polius was involved in the ministry at that time, and we got letters from all of these people. We also got a letter from the Minister of Agriculture of South Africa, because we wrote Nelson Mandela in 1998, outlining our the decline of the banana industry, and that we needed to get into agricultural diversification, and that we felt that the industrial hemp plant would be one of the flagship plants to actually lead the charge in agricultural diversification, get the ghetto youths interested in agriculture, because nobody wants to be a banana farmer. That's not a very glamorous thing. So you use something to, hype it up, come and let's do this. And then while you're on the land, you can teach these youth how to produce other crops and feed the nation. So the whole idea was formulated back in 1998. And we have letters from Minister Greaves. He was Minister of Health at the time. Mr. Philip J. Pear. He was asking for an opinion from the Attorney General's office. We got the opinion from the Attorney General's office. And all of a sudden, we got a letter in 2006 that squashed the whole program, after Mr. Bain and myself spent well over $10,000 researching over the 6-year period and making contacts with Oxfam, Canadian International Development Agency, the World Bank, the EU, sourcing funding, and all of this. The rug was just pulled from under our feet.
But you're talking about industrial hemp, and I will talk a little bit more about industrial hemp, and also, the move to decriminalize marijuana as well. But let me bring in Dr. Bray here. Dr. Bray, thank you again for joining us as well.
Thank you, sir.
And of course, from your standpoint, I see the arguments that are being made about limiting or not opening up the floodgates to the production of hemp or related products like marijuana. What is your position with regard to the industry that Mr. DeCaris just outlined there.
Well, with regards to, thanks again for having me, Clinton. With regards to the industry, the question is how much of a control can we have over what comes out of the industry? We have a hemp industry. A lot can be produced out of it, perhaps shirts, shoes, and other things. Is that all we will go for? What are the byproducts? How will we promote, keep the market motivated? That is a concern for me. If you have a hemp industry, there is going to be a byproduct, and because the two are related, they're from the same source. There is that relationship that we need to look at, so we can understand the impact it's going to have on a small country like ours.
Now, you said a number of people were consulted, and you had a number of discussions with the authorities on setting up this industry. You said the rug was pulled from under you. What was the reason? Was any reason given?
Yes. Negative repercussions from the United States. As a result...
That's it?
Yeah. Basically, it too hot a potato. They could have told us that in 1998 and said, forget it, fellas. But they let us on for 6 years after we spent 10 grand and, you know, putting my neck out on the line and coming out for a whole decade ago saying these things when people weren't even ready 10 years ago. They're still not ready now. And I stuck my neck out because of all these positive letters from all these people within the government. And then, you know, the rug was pulled from under us.
And the U.S. Position was the primary reason given. We look at the U.S. right now, and we hear about the elections. And in every election, there is consideration given to the use of marijuana, you know, for medicinal purposes. A number of states have made it legal for people to possess marijuana in certain quantities.
For recreational reasons.
For recreational and for medicinal purposes. I mean, given what he has said, how could we still continue to justify not opening up to recreational use and to, well, for research and medicinal purposes as well?
The whole world does not have to bow when America speaks. And I'm not saying that in any pejoratory way. I'm simply saying that St. Lucia needs to be a unique country. We need to take into consideration, we need to consider our people. We need to look at the impact, the social, psychological impact, the economic impact this is going to have on our country, a small place like ours. And whereas in some parts of the United States, permission is being given for recreational and medicinal use of marijuana, but it's not a federal decision or federal law that it's an arbitrary use of it. So there is still a significant amount of control over the use of marijuana in the United States and in other parts of the world, because marijuana is one of the widest, one of the drugs or the psychoactive drug that is prevalent in a number of places that is commonly used. So there are many side effects to it, and every country wants to look at the side effects. Every country wants to look at the economic benefits and also the economic downfall it can have. I'm saying that not only should we look at the economic benefits, how much money can be made if a pharmaceutical company were to take it on, or if some government were to say, well, let's decriminalize this so that it can be used, or that persons would not be sent to prison for X amount of marijuana found on the person. We need to, before a decision like that can be made, if it ever is going to be made, we need to look at the fact that our people will be significantly affected by such a decision.
Now, Mr. DeCaris, I mean, this argument is a legitimate one. You don't want to open up a can of worms, so to speak, by putting this thing out there, knowing that it has some significant or serious social repercussions. We know about the psychosis, people who are predisposed. One might make the argument, though, that with diabetes, people are predisposed to diabetes, but still, sugar is not outlawed. People are killing themselves every day by unhealthy eating practices. But then whatever substances they're using are not outlawed. So how do you juxtapose that?
Well, I do agree with the doctor. There are certain people who should never smoke marijuana. It can be dangerous. The psychoactive effect. The initial, you see, the mode of action of marijuana compared to, say, some of the other recreational drugs is relatively safe in the sense that you can sit down and ingest marijuana to excessive amounts and it doesn't cause death in one sitting.
Well, yeah, and I know you're speaking specifically of alcohol, and I mean, of course, we can bring that argument in. But however, you said, some people, they should not use marijuana
definitely
at all. But then you have to try to know that you can't use it. It has to reach a point, and then when you have used it, you have crossed that line where
now,
it can lead to psychosis. No?
Right now, there are no sort of social services there to serve people who are abusing marijuana. It's just illegal and that's it. With decriminalization, we would provide social services, counseling, because it's illegal, that doesn't mean nobody is doing it. Everybody is doing it. And we're not tackling the issues. They have a lot of kids going to school using marijuana, can't study because they're high. Who's telling them anything? Who's talking to them? Their parents don't even know that they're using it. So what are we going to do? We need to tackle this issue head on. Decriminalize, regulate, educate. Educate parents as how to deal with their kids. Because you can tell somebody not to do it, and he goes down the road and it's readily available here, despite it being illegal.
The question is, if we decide to educate, just as we've been doing with so many other things in our society, individuals can decide arbitrarily just to go ahead and do what they need to do. We need to decide on whether we should allow our people to have access to such a drug that can have devastating effects on our country.
We'll take a break right now. On Newsmaker Live, we're speaking here with the chairman of the cannabis movement, Andrew DeCaris, and also clinical psychotherapist, Dr. Franklin Bray. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the use of marijuana, decriminalizing, and also the industrial hemp movement. Stay with us. We'll be right back.